our way through the cello section. Good morning. Hiya. Well, here we are. We've got the orchestra, we've got the choir, Abbey Road. In for quite an exciting day. We've got the boy trebles coming today, so a lot of action today. Looking forward to it. Ecce con Meum.
The story began about 10 years ago when we were just finishing our beautiful new auditorium. We needed to open it a piece of music that was suitable for the auditorium rather than the chapel, something that would be not religious music, but nonetheless could be sung by our choir, and with music that could be done by a good college, small college orchestra.
I had done a full-blown orchestral piece called Standing Stone.
I heard Standing Stone, and I thought, I wonder whether Paul McCartney would answer the telephone.
It's actually Anthony Smith of Magdalen College got in touch with me many years ago now and said, would you like to write a choral piece, especially for us? If you would, we'd like to commission you for it.
One day the phone rang, and it was Paul himself saying, got your letter, very interested, and shall we talk further about it? And he said, we better come and visit.
I was very excited just with the idea of writing for a choir, and in particular something as prestigious as Magdalen.
He began thinking about it. He came and talked to Bill Ives, the choir master.
Paul and Linda came up to the college, and they had tea with Tony in the president's lodgings and came to Evensong, and so the choir was all very excited, and Paul McCartney's going to be there, and we filed into chapel, and there he was sitting there on the right-hand side holding hands with Linda, and we sang our Evensong. And after the service, Tony brought them back to my room.
So I said, yeah. It was only years later I said, how much does this commission pay? Someone said, nothing.
And that's where it sort of began.
It was a long time writing and composing and bringing it to fruition. Probably about 10 years. I haven't actually counted, but it's at least 10 years. So I wrote it and I started up on it and was getting quite a bit of a speed on. And then Linda died. So that sort of stopped me, and for a couple of years, I think I just couldn't do anything really. I was just grieving. Then when I eventually came back to it, I started doing some particularly sad bits. There's a piece in between the second and the third movement called Interlude, which me and my colleague remember writing, you know, and sort of sitting at the keyboard weeping. It still affects me. It's quite a sad thing. The chords are very sad. And it's strange, really, how something with no words, which this little section doesn't have, can affect you so deeply, can affect your emotions. It just is a very sad little bit, and it has an oboe leading the melody. And then the choir and orchestra do these changes behind it. And yeah, so I gradually got back into it through that, just sort of wrote my sadness out. And then was able, after a year or two, to then start to pick it up again. So I just started to think of some melodies, some tunes, and some music to sort of hang the whole thing on, thinking that once I had a couple of memorable tunes, we'd be halfway there, and I could fill in. What people who do it normally do is they find a text, and then they set that text. They don't write the text normally, they set it. So it can be an old French poem, it can be a piece of Shakespeare's sonnets, and then they set it to music. And I only found that out when I was at like a cocktail party or something in Oxford, meeting with people who had done choir work and had written for choirs. And one of them said, "What text are you using?" I said, "Oh, I'm making it up." And I suddenly realised, there's the first mistake. But what I did was, instead of thinking of it as a mistake, I thought, well, you know, there's only one reason they've hired me to do this. They could have got, there's 50 great choral writers in Britain alone who could have easily done this piece more expertly than I did. But I thought, well, why are they asking me? They want something different. And so anything like that was a sort of mistake, I turned to its advantage and just sort of thought, right, I'm going to write the words after I've done the music. Well, that'll make it different right there. When I came round to thinking, what do I want the words to say? I actually just wrote down a whole load of things that just interested me. Just about truth and about love and about honesty and about kindness and just stuff that I thought was important in life. So that whatever this was going to be, there would be some meaningful moments for me in it. Some of those strange elements. It'd be good to just go for it.
Yes, exactly.
A little bit.
Yes.
Strange. Once you get it. So first it was music, and then I started to put words to it once I felt I had enough structure in the music. I wanted to actually involve some Latin because it was Magdalen and because it was a boys' choir. The idea of Latin words suggested itself to me. All Romantic languages are from Rome, which I'd never realised. I thought Romantic meant something to do with love, you know, it means Rome. So they're all to do with Latin. So that was one of my fascinations with this. So I involved one of the tutors at Magdalen.
He'd written an English text, which was then sent to us, and we got one of our Latin experts to translate it.
I sent him a bunch of thoughts, and I got him to translate them all into Latin, and he sent them back, and I chose phrases that I liked. In the end, I used very few phrases, because I thought it would get a little bit inaccessible to most people who had a lot of Latin, so I used little bits. So that was sort of took care of the words. And then I just strung it all together, as you do. And the next big kind of crisis was, I didn't understand how choral writers set the music. You've got, they call SATB, you've got sopranos, altos, tenors, and basses. So it's basically 4 parts that you have at your disposal. So if you've got the sopranos doing something like, and just something like, you know, Spiritus, Spiritus, lead us to love, which is one of the lines. Then the basses, if they just go, whoa, da, da. What I was doing was spiritu of, and I was just putting a syllable where they sang. But somebody says, no, they've got to make sense. Each of these lines has got, you know, you can't have them singing speed, ooh, love. So that then meant I had to kind of look at the whole thing in a completely different light. And it was like a crossword puzzle, so what I likened it to. And I actually started to enjoy the process. So I'd take my top line, find out what these people were doing, and instead of Spiritus, Spiritus, lead us to love, they might be going lead to love, or whatever. But it all had to make sense. So, so after I'd done that, then I was pretty much on the way. I was asked by John Taverner to take part in one of his choral pieces that he wanted me to narrate. It was to be done in New York on Madison Avenue at St. Ignatius, I think. There was a church on Madison Avenue. So I went to do that, and while I was waiting for my moment, while the choir was singing other bits, I was just looking around, and there was a crucifixion scene, and underneath it said Ecce Meum. So I started thinking, what does this mean? I knew what Ecce meant. It was one of the first words you learn in Latin. And I knew it was behold, Ecce, Caesar. So I knew that bit. And Meum I could understand meant mine, and I gradually figured out the core was heart. So it meant behold my heart. And I thought that would be a good title for the piece. And the Ecce thing was funny actually, because how I remember that word, my fondness for the word Ecce came about because I was on holiday and there was a lady who used to take the Daily Telegraph crossword, I think it was, and she used to have it faxed in to where we were in the Caribbean. And she'd be there on the beach every morning doing the crossword, and I'd come down. How you doing? She said, oh, fine, fine, fine. I'd go for a swim. One morning I came down, I said, how you doing? She said, oh, I'm stuck. I said, what is it? She said, I'm not very good at Latin. I said, why, what is it? And she said, it's 4 letters, behold, brackets, Latin. I said, I think you'll find that's Ecce. My big one Latin word I knew, And she said, really? Yeah, E-C-C-E, check it out. And so she put it in, because I was a big hero the next day. You're right. I thought I would be. Swim, off I went.
Maybe even 2 years passed, and then finally he got in touch with Bill Ives, the choir master, and there was a piece of music.
He was sort of showing me the score and saying, I hope you're going to like it. And there was this man, this huge songwriting legend, asking me whether what I thought of the piece.
I think the nervousness of handing it over to someone like Bill Ives, who's the choir master of Magdalen, is that he's an expert on choral music. He's seen the very finest that's been done. He himself writes. And there was I, never having done it before, handing over my sort of, it was like handing over an exam paper to the teacher, I'd been working on a computer that was giving me ideas of how the orchestra was sounding. So I would have an oboe, but on the computer, and voices, but on the computer. So I had a rough idea of the sound. And then I had to work with various people who could actually put this onto a manuscript, put all my ideas down, and help me form them into a written manuscript, which is the way I work, because I don't read or write music. I just sort of feel it and think it. My excuse is that I'm Celtic. It's a pretty lame excuse, but it's what I'm sticking with. Because I don't officially know what I'm doing, I can do anything. Whereas anyone who's been trained will have been told, don't do that with the trumpet. One of the great things writing for an orchestra is you mustn't exhaust them too much. You can go in, you can write stuff off the range of the top of the trumpet, and there's always one trumpeter who will do it. But if you want the piece to get played around the world, it's probably better to keep it within the range of most trumpeters. Maybe have 1 or 2 virtuoso bits. So this is all stuff you have to learn, But a lot of the stuff that I like about the piece is kind of oddball. I mean, I remember doing some of the string lines, and the strings were really having problems with it because it's not what they would normally do. Do 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 do. You know, sort of scales and things like that. They're used to. But if I'm going do 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 do, then they've got to actually think about what they're doing, practice it up, and then get to it as if it's second nature. So it's a good process. They kind of enjoyed it, I think, in the end. There's some very demanding pizzicato work in the basses, which is more like jazz bass. And if you're in concert, it's not too bad, because you play it once in an evening. Of course, when you're recording it and you're going over it time and time again to get the perfect take, they all ended up next day with plasters on their fingers, you know. When I did the first classical piece I did, which was the Liverpool Oratorio, the man at EMI who I worked with as a classical producer was John Fraser. And we got on very well. He's a great expert. So when it came to this, I thought there's no other choice really. He's the man that I know, does a great job, and he wanted to do it. So we did it. I knew we wanted a soprano soloist. So I said to him, let's look around for a few and give me your recommendation, who you think could do the job well. And his first recommendation was Kate Royal.
So he introduced me to Paul McCartney, and I went and sang a bit to him, and we worked on the score a bit, and so that's how this came about.
She was the first one we looked at, and I was immediately satisfied.
Well, I had no real idea about the piece. I had no idea what it would entail and how much time and all of this. So it was, for me, just jumping in at the deep end and arriving at Abbey Road, and not only recording here, I'd never even been here before, but suddenly being greeted by Paul McCartney was slightly terrifying.
You know, if you're a great professional, you're not allowed to be terrified. But obviously, stepping right in, as she did, she stepped in on the day, and all the people we'd been making the record for a few days by the time she came.
But he was so unbelievably down to earth and straightforward about what he wanted, so he immediately sort of calmed down the situation, and it went from there.
Good, very good. Well done. Diving into that, in the middle of all that. Yeah, there's just a little bit I'd like you to do. Give you a little bit. I'll show you. John will show you that. If you sense someone's going to be nervous, I know that from being a performer myself. You think, let's try and cool this down. Let's break the ice. Let's just show everyone we're all normal around here. We're just trying to do a job. It's going to add a little bit from the front, because you're coming in cold, nobody knows where the pitch is. You'll hear a couple of notes before you come in, so you'll get the pitch. She got what I was saying. What I wanted to have happen was, instead of a sort of very wobbly, vibrato-y, old-fashioned kind of soprano sound, I wanted it to be a bit plain sound, maybe a little bit of vibrato at the ends and things. And she completely understood that. flattened right out. A couple of those notes in this. It's quite. Yeah, but it was like, wow, very interesting.
And we're all happy with the tempo, aren't we?
Yes,
Great,
the
very
tempo
good
is quite-
tempo,
quite-
music,
quite
absolutely, just
tempo.
really nice. And the combination's going to be great, I think, really exciting.
Okay.
Because I think my point was always, if it's just woo, there's your soprano. But this, I think, is really exciting because we sort of set up.
And then
And
warm
when
it
you
up
get that,
slightly,
it's
yeah,
like-
it's gorgeous.
Okay.
It's kind of worth more. Too slow? No? Good. I'm just being moved by it. You enjoy it? Because John Fraser works with EMI, his natural choice of studio is Abbey Road. And of course, I've got a lot of connections with Abbey Road. It's the first place I recorded with the Beatles, and I've recorded there through the years. And the big #1 studio is an excellent orchestral studio that people come from all around the world to work in. So it was a perfect choice. It's always nice to work there for me because it brings back lots of memories. From when I first went there, and of course working there with the Beatles, my main memory. But it's a great place to work. You know, there is a kind of natural sort of, unless we rise, unless we also did, which sort of slows it all up a bit.
Yes.
I think you can let that breathe a bit, because that driving through sounds a bit down.
It's too much. Yes.
And this also did, but then you've got to get back to the
Just go back in on it.
Yeah. When you're working on a big orchestral session in a studio, you obviously can't get a great church organ in with the big pipes. So you have a thing called an Allen organ, which just means you can work in the studio. It's smaller, it's easier to work. So we use that for a lot of the piece, where the organ was just doing simple orchestral accompaniments.
Right, was that right speed?
The first entry.
It does seem like an
Yeah, when just before anyone else is yeah, was that the right speed?
That was good.
It's after that,
And then I think it pushes on. And obviously those bum, 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 they're so tricky. I think it just naturally picks up a bit of momentum. And then,
feels like it wants to go.
Yeah.
And you know, it's like we let out a great having that.
put a little muzzle on him.
The problem is that the louder you get, actually the sound becomes more diffuse and more ugly.
Once the organ was very exposed, I started to talk about the chance of getting to use a real organ. I actually had seen a television program where someone had gone around Europe saying this is the Strasbourg organ, this is the Berlin organ, this is the Paris, and they were all completely different and amazing instruments. So I thought, I've got to find something like that. And the organist who played for us on the orchestral recording, Colm, an Irish bloke, excellent organist, I said to him, where are we going to find a real nice organ? He said, well, I work in the Tower of London, in the chapel of the Tower of London. He said, and it's got a pretty good organ there. May not be the greatest in Europe, but it's a real organ. It's a really good sound, and I know it well.
It's a small acoustic, and it's got but a little bit of life to it, and you know, it is a powerful instrument, and the fact that it's real and it's real pipes.
Well, that's what
I mean, you can even come down and just hear it.
Yeah.
And I think when you hear it, you'd say, actually, yes.
Yeah, I'm there in imagination already. I am. No, I'm convinced that it's the way to go.
Yeah, so we're all set up.
Great.
Ready
Come
to
on,
roll.
let's have a little listen then in
A
here.
little listen? Okay, that's
Yes. Great. This is a good decision.
yeah, I think it's got a lot more vitality to it. You know? It really does have a lot of life.
Proper organ.
I think, yeah.
Great.
So I think it's
Sounds nice.
yeah.
Yeah.
It'll work well.
And you have been practicing.
Cheeky, cheeky.
Moving like Fred Astaire.
Oh, I know. Yeah, yeah.
dum,
Sitting
dum,
on the dance floor. Yeah, yeah.
Nice. Yeah, the hard bit, you've got it well cooked.
This is so. I mean, it's so unlike anything else I've ever played. You know, I mean, it's very funky. It's great. Have a listen inside, see what you think.
I will.
Yeah.
I'll go and have a listen. Great. Nice. Sounds good. I feel they should go bum, 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 but then let it sort of pick itself up and it sort of goes bum, 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 but a little.
I know.
Seems to sort of turn itself on its head. I can't quite figure out what's. So we just took the one or two pieces that were organ solos where the organ was very exposed and you needed the absolute greatest sound you could get. And he put those in there at the Tower of London. And when we were finished, it was excellent, you know, we loved his performance, loved the sound. So it was that, you know, this amazing sense of history of Henry VIII and the Tower of London, But here we were accomplishing our very last recording. That was the last piece of the puzzle. At the Tower of London, at the chapel, and he'd played it brilliantly. So that was quite a great end to the project. This is a real performance. This is the first real performance. And it is the Albert Hall, after all, you know, historical place. So it's a bit nerve-wracking, but very exciting. It sounds very good at the back. It's gone very well so far, touch wood. We've rehearsed the orchestra. What do you think? It's a proper solo. Well, you know what, let's leave it as a sort of either or. Let's just be prepared in case. We'll let you know in time. Yeah, we're just doing a few little sort of fiddly things as to whether the oboist should stand up and stuff, and getting Gavin so that he can see Kate and she can see him. Just last minute tweaks, but it's great. It sounds beautiful to me. We've been tweaking lights and looking at light and effects and things and just talking, sorting out all the little bits, you know, the conductor had a little bit of squeakiness underneath his foot. He didn't want that for the quiet bits. So you spend your last minutes doing that kind of thing, you know. The orchestra's pretty well rehearsed now. I'm very pleased. The orchestra playing it great and the choir singing it great is all I need. It's going to be great. Going to be even more nervous when all the people come in. But at that point, there's nothing I can do about it. Beautiful orchestra, St. Martin's in the Fields. Leader Ken Silito. I thank the London Voices, the great choir. These young gentlemen here from Magdalen College and from King's College, Cambridge. Thank you very much. Ben, who's the choir master. And to Katie, Kay Royal, who did a fantastic job. And Mr. Gavin Greenaway, who kept everything in control. And Cole, the organist. Most of all, we want to thank all of you for coming. Thank you very much.
We are at Carnegie Hall, and we are broadcasting and webcasting this all Paul McCartney event live, and there will be a fair amount of seating brought out onto the main stage here at Carnegie Hall because the forces required for Paul McCartney's newest classical work, Ecce Meum, are pretty massive.
Nearly 200 musicians will be on stage all together for this American premiere of this brand new work by Paul McCartney, Ecce Meum.
And it is a sold-out Carnegie Hall from which we are broadcasting and webcasting this evening.
Paul McCartney! Yay!
Well, we're just about to hear the American premiere of your piece, Ecce Meum. Sir Paul McCartney, thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you, gentlemen. Great to be here at the great Carnegie Hall in America for the premiere of Ecce Meum.